everybody, welcome to Journey at Home. I'm Lauren, and we're so glad that you're tuning in. If it's your first time, we'd love to know you're watching, so scan the QR code on the screen or go to newtojourney.online to let us know you're here. And whenever you're ready to join us in person, we'd love to see you at the CFSB Center for one of our Sunday services at 9 and 10:30 a.m. You can find all the details at journeycallaway.com. Today, Matt's concluding his interview series, Behind My Journey, so settle in and let's get started.
Well, hey everybody, thanks for joining us again for this final episode of Behind My Journey. You're going to hear another incredible story today. Let me introduce you, if you don't know already, to Kenzie Lawson. Hey Kenzie, first of all, thanks so much for doing this. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
So you are longtime Murray girl.
Yes.
And
born and raised.
Born and raised right here, so a lot of people know you.
Yeah.
Let's just jump right into your story.
Yeah.
First of all, tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up here in Murray, what your church experience was like, how all of that shaped you.
Yeah. First off, I love growing up in Murray. I know when I was in high school, I always thought, oh, I can't wait to get out of here. My plan was, I'm going to go somewhere and get out of here for college. But then, when that time came, I was like, well, I guess I could live at home and kind of reap the benefits of that. So I do love Murray. I've loved living here my whole life. My church experience when I was younger, we went to a local church, and I just didn't feel like it was very welcoming, especially when I started going to Journey, there was just a major difference between the two.
How old were you around that time?
I went there when I remember going there in preschool, so.
For a long time.
Long time, kind of on and off. We didn't go every Sunday. The big thing for me is just I didn't feel like it was very applicable to me. I didn't feel like, we had a few different preachers. I just felt like they were always preaching to the older generation, if that makes sense. I just didn't feel like it, applied to me as much. And I just didn't feel like, if you'd been there for a long time, you were in. It was a family. You were there for, But if you didn't go every Sunday and you weren't there all the time, I just didn't feel like I fit in very well, which
Sure.
I didn't, that's not somebody or somewhere that you really want to invite people to, or, when I started going to Journey, I was like, this is the place I want to be. Immediately, I felt like I was family, from the people greeting me at the door, to the lighting being low, and, everybody being welcoming and saying hi. And I remember even seeing you up on the stage, just first off saying, hey, if you're a guest here today, go up here and you're going to get a free gift for something. It just felt super welcoming. So I just enjoyed going to a place where I wanted to invite people to, because I think that makes a church. If you want to invite people, then they're doing something good. So
yeah, sure. Do you think part of what created that was the sense that, you knew y'all weren't there all the time growing up, right? Yeah. And so did it just feel a little awkward when you were there, because you felt like, hey...
Oh, they knew I wasn't here last Sunday.
Right. Whether they were thinking that or not,
they probably weren't, but that's kind of what it felt like to me. I just they know we're not here all the time. They probably think we're just, not that this was the case, but we were just the family that comes on Easter. But you know what I mean?
Sure.
We weren't there all the time. So
Sure.
I think that definitely played into it.
So how did all of that impact your relationship with God and how your faith grew as a kid and then a teenager?
Right. Kind of like what you talk about a lot on Sundays, this very wrong image of what God is. You can do right and wrong, and there's, if you sin, then God still loves you. But I just felt like if I wasn't there all the time, that maybe God felt the way about me that I thought that they were thinking about me, as far as oh, she wasn't here last Sunday, but God doesn't care.
Right.
is what I've learned. So.
Yeah. So let me fast forward a little bit.
Yeah.
First of all, what prompted you to come to Journey?
Yeah.
How did you end up here?
So when I was in college, I want to say a sophomore, junior, my best friend Hannah Williams invited me to come to Journey, because she'd been going there for a little bit longer than I had. we have been friends since we were in preschool. So I'm going to be 25 this year, 23 years. That's a long friendship. So, you know, throughout my life, she was always inviting me to come to her church or Vacation Bible School or BCM in college. And she really never gave up on me. And she always had, you know, if she invited me to something, I knew it was going to be pretty great. So I decided to try Journey out, brought my mom, and we loved it. We absolutely loved it.
And you've been there pretty consistently since that point.
Probably since 2016, I want to say. So.
Yeah, and you've gotten involved. You're serving. During the pandemic, during one of our outdoor gatherings, this was one of my favorite moments. You got baptized.
Yes.
And Hannah got to be there and be a
Yes.
part of that. What caused you to decide you wanted to take that step?
So I've always been a very anxious person. From the time I was little, I had terrible separation anxiety. And I think that was also a part of the church thing, because when we went to church, Mom couldn't take me to Sunday school because I would rather just sit with her and, you know, in the pew. And that, you know, what we called big church, I still call it big church to this day. It wasn't really geared toward kids. That may have been the reason why, you know, it wasn't applicable to me, because I didn't go to my Sunday school and, you know, that kind of stuff. But I was always super anxious. In the beginning of the pandemic, I started reading the Bible every day and doing like a cover-to-cover year-long Bible study.
Okay.
And I just felt a lot of peace with that. And I've always read that, you know, anxiety is like a pot of boiling water, and anything that you can get to take it to a simmer is something that's really good. So that's what the Bible really did for me, and really getting into the Word. And as I was watching your sermons on, you know, online during the pandemic, I would sit down afterwards and write the answers out to the discussion questions and really see how that applied to me. And I think that really helped. So I just decided that I really wanted to take the leap to show everyone else also. You know, I had already accepted Jesus as my Christ and Savior, but I wanted to just make that, you know, shown to the world that, you know, I had taken that step. And I'd actually been baptized when I was younger in my home church. A lot of my friends were getting baptized, and I mean, I don't want to say I did it for the wrong reasons, but nothing changed for me. I didn't feel it, you know, at peace afterwards. I don't think I realized exactly what I was doing at that age. So I'm a double dipper. It makes me sound like an ice cream cone at Dairy Queen. But so I decided I really wanted to get baptized in the church that showed me what the difference was between, you know, being a Christian and being a Jesus follower. And that was Journey for me.
You felt like your faith, you owned it more yourself at this point.
Yes.
So you hit on the anxiety, and this is part of why I wanted you to share your story.
Yeah.
I think this is part of your story that helps and connects with people so much. Anxiety's been a battle for all your life. Many years. For pretty much all your life.
Yeah.
And then, you know, you in the last, 18 months or so, you've been through a lot of things that would create anxiety for anybody. Yeah. But for somebody who already deals with it, what I have admired so much is watching how you've learned to depend on God through this. So can you share just a little bit about, I mean, you're at a stage now, for people who don't know, you're a nurse.
Yes.
So you're in just walk them through everything you went through as the pandemic hit and over these last few months.
So it kind of goes back a little before that, because when I started college, I was actually going to be a teacher. I was an education major. And then out of the blue, I just decided, I just don't think this is for me. Why don't you try nursing? Which that was God talking to me, because I was terrified of needles. So those things usually don't mix. So I changed my major, which, you know, kind of threw my timing off. I was somebody that always had a plan, and I was planning to graduate, you know, this time, this day, this year. And so I changed to nursing, and I graduated in 2019. And kind of during my last year of nursing school, my parents were going through a really bad divorce, and that kind of, you know, the anxiety was even worse with that.
That's such a struggle, isn't it?
Yes, yeah. And me and my dad kind of had a falling out, and we hadn't talked since about 2018.
Okay.
And so I graduated, started my job at Lourdes in Paducah, a critical care floor, as a coronary nurse. So I started there. I did my orientation, working with hearts and working with heart attacks and all that kind of stuff. And then the week after I got off orientation, we became critical COVID. So everything that I had learned in my orientation was out the window, because we're still critical COVID. We've been that since the pandemic started. And so as a new nurse, that was really, really hard, because there was shifts where we lost 4 patients in a shift. And that was a lot. That was a lot.
It's a lot to process, isn't it?
Yes, and a lot of times we would be the last person that they would talk to before we put them on a ventilator.
Yeah.
And anybody's success rate with a ventilator, we probably had maybe 8 come off of 100 or so that went on the ventilator. So a lot of times we knew, like, this is the end and this is our last conversation. We were still trying to keep their hopes up and everything, but it made us feel helpless.
And I guess during this period, family couldn't be there with them.
Family couldn't be there until it came to a point where they had to make a decision, which was always hard to call and say, I know you haven't been able to see them for a month, but we're at a point where I need you to come see them because they're not doing well, and we need to make, a decision for the next steps if we're going to keep them comfortable, or if, we're going to keep on with this. So it made you feel super, super helpless because, like I said, there was nights when we would lose 3 or 4 patients at a time, and we got super close with them and their families.
Sure.
So
you were family for them during that period.
Yes, and especially for their family because we were the only we were the ones we talked to get their updates. So they couldn't talk to their family, and a lot of times I would go in and take my phone in and let their families FaceTime with them for a while, and just hearing all of that was really, really hard.
It takes an emotional toll on you, doesn't it?
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure. We've all had, as far as the nurses, there's been a lot of anxiety around all of that. We've all, kind of struggled with it this year. So.
Okay, and before we move on, the general public now, most of us, we're starting to move on and get back to normal.
Yeah.
I think it's important to point out, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but for all of you in the medical field, especially those of you who are on the front lines, it's just not that simple. Like, there's a lot you guys are still facing, and there's a lot you're having to process through. It's going to take you a while, right?
Yeah. I read a study not long ago that there's a lot of PTSD with nurses surrounding this. So there's a lot that I think we're going to have to work through after this because we saw a lot. And even, we didn't see it as bad as, like, the nurses in New York. I can't imagine, in bigger places like that because it was already hard enough with what we saw. I can't imagine, what they were seeing.
Dealt with.
Yeah.
The other thing I want to ask you before we move forward, and I don't want to get into specifics, but the relationship with your dad as well. That is challenging for anybody.
Yes.
Because no matter what's happened, no matter who's at fault, there are some relationships that you just wish they were healthy, right? There's some relationships that are always worth fighting for, even if you know it's a losing battle.
Yes.
And a dad and a daughter is one of those kinds of relationships.
For sure.
So can you just talk a little bit about how you navigated through that, and that had to take an emotional toll on you as well?
Yeah. So when my parents were going through the divorce, just a lot of things happened that made me feel like, for me, it was better if I took a step back from that relationship with him, because it was more damaging at the time.
For you, that was a healthy boundary to have. But a painful one nonetheless, I assume.
Yes, for sure. It was difficult because my older brother, he was still trying to make things work and talk with my dad. So I took a step back. My dad still kept trying to reach out to me, and I just didn't feel like I was ready at the time. But yeah, it was really difficult because, my graduation, I didn't invite him. It was also a time that I got married, and so he didn't walk me down the aisle. My brother walked me down the aisle, so I was extremely grateful for my brother. And that was my decision. It was nothing that my dad decided.
Right.
But at that time in my life, it was just something that I had to do for me, to be healthy with my mental health, is to kind of take a step back from that. So yeah, it was really, really challenging.
That's why I think it's important for people to understand. Even though you felt like that was the right decision for you at that moment, it didn't make it hurt any less.
No.
Right?
No, not at all.
Yeah, there was still all of that you're processing through.
Yes, for sure.
So,
For sure.
so let's move forward. So you're dealing with all of that with your family. You get baptized right into the pandemic. I can't imagine, straight out of school into dealing with that. And then, on top of that, what happens next?
So I got baptized on September 29th, which I don't know if you remember, but we had pushed it back. I think it was supposed to be the 15th, and it rained or something like that.
We had to wait 2 weeks to do it.
So that was probably my fault. I think that was a God thing for me, so I'm sorry about that. But my dad died on October 1st.
Yeah.
So I think me getting baptized right before was like, okay, something's about to happen, but I'm getting you ready for it. So I think it just being a few days before, I was able to kind of, it was hard because we still hadn't spoken.
And this was an unexpected death.
Oh, completely, yeah. 57 years old, he was healthy, very unexpected.
You didn't see that coming.
No, not at all. And actually the week before he had reached out and tried to go to dinner with me. And I was just kind of tugging at me, and I was like, maybe I should go, which I now think that was God saying, like, this is your chance. Yeah. You need to go. But I still felt like it was still healthier for me to be at a distance. So, when I got the news that he had passed away, that was really tough. It's tough in any circumstance, but the fact that we hadn't spoken in so long and he had been trying to reach out to me, it was
devastating,
really, really
right?
hard, yeah.
It was devastating. So, I don't know any way to ask it and to be blunt. I'm like, I look at you and your story, and I'm like, how are you still sitting here in one piece and in a healthy emotional place? Yeah. I know you're still processing through all this, but you didn't completely fall apart.
No.
Right?
For a little while, but
normal, in a normal
yes, in a
way.
Normal way.
And you take all of those circumstances for anyone, and it could break them.
Yeah.
You add on to that, you already deal with anxiety.
Yeah.
It should have broken you. Mm-hmm. So how'd you get through it? What happened? Yeah.
Like I said, I'd really started diving into the Bible and reading, trying to read cover to cover. So I had just kind of started to lean on God a little bit more. And I think a big thing for me with my anxiety is like I want to be in control. And once I realized I'm not in control, I just, I'm not in control of anything. Jesus is, and, he has a plan for me, and sometimes our plans don't align. And sometimes that's really hard to just grasp, but you got to take it for what it is. It just is. And so I just started to, I leaned on that, and I realized that I could get through it. God's there for me, and, I can get through anything with him by my side. And I actually read something the other day that kind of equated God's grace as his power. Mm-hmm. And our faith as the cord you plug into the power. So it's always there. You just have to, use it, plug it into his power to get his grace.
You got to connect to it.
Yeah. So I really think it was a major God thing that I got baptized, 2 or 3 days before my dad died, because I was able to lean on everything that I had read in the Bible. I was able to lean on you and Jared, because if nobody knows, they did the funeral, the wedding, or right. Not the wedding. They did.
We initiated the funeral. Yes. Yes.
They initiated the funeral.
So this is. I just think this is incredible, and I just want to dive into it for a minute. Mm-hmm. A couple things. First of all, you said that you realized your anxiety is triggered by wanting to be in control, which I think is huge for everybody out there. And if you deal with anxiety, you don't want to hear that in the moment, right? Yeah. So I didn't say it. Kenzie did. She's got the authority to say it. That is true.
Yeah.
So what has impressed me so much from a distance, looking from the outside, Kenzie, is you really have learned to depend on and walk with God every single day and trust him no matter what was coming your way, because everything got out of control in your life in a hurry.
Yeah.
First of all, how did you figure out how to do that?
I just, watching your sermons, I would take notes and answer the discussion questions, and I figured out a lot about myself in doing that, because you would always leave us with a couple questions at the end. Think about this, and that's kind of how I figured out that, the big thing for me is wanting to be in control. And once I realized, I'm not, then I was able to kind of just, lean on God. It's not always easy, A big thing for me is that I realized, even with how hard my nursing was at the time, but that I was exactly where I was meant to be. Yeah. I remember you preaching about your purpose is what breaks your heart. And being with my patients, and seeing them go through these things that broke my heart. But I was able to be that person for their family to help them kind of get through it. And, going through the whole own thing with my dad, I had been right there. So I was able to say, I understand my dad just passed away, but this is how we can get through it. These are the next steps. So just, figuring out that not only bad things were happening, good things were happening too. 2020 was a tough year, but me and my husband bought a house, so, great things were happening. I started my nursing career. God was giving me all these amazing things as well, was also putting me through some of these trials, but it made me stronger in the end. And it also made me realize that, even though he's putting me through these things, he's also giving me some amazing things at the same time.
Okay, so I want to break this down a little bit because you said a lot of great stuff there. I have said before, your life always moves in the direction of your strongest thoughts, right? And so when anxiety hits, all you can think about is the negative. It consumes your mind.
Yeah.
What you just explained to us, which I think is fascinating, you figured out a way to redirect your thoughts. And you just talked about, I'm going to read my Bible, I'm going to listen to the messages, I'm going to reflect and answer the questions. That was all you shifting your mind and refocusing on something positive and true, right? And then the other thing is you start talking about all the good things that happened in 2020. That's the power of gratitude, isn't it? It does the same thing. It shifts your mind.
Yeah.
Do you think that ability to redirect your thoughts from everything that was fearful to your Heavenly Father, that's been the secret for you then?
For sure. I'm actually reading a book right now that's called I Can Do It Afraid. So it's all talking about how it's not about getting rid of all your fear, because you're not going to do that, but realizing that God is with you through the fear, and that he's giving you some amazing things at the same time is what kind of helps us get through it. So
at this point in your life, you've lived a lot of life. I mean, you're young. You've lived a lot of life in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
At this point in your life, looking back, how has your relationship with God changed over the last 2-3 years?
Yeah. When I was in the beginning of college, I guess, I was the one that would only go on special occasions to church. And now I go every Sunday. I help out in Highway 252. I love my kids. They always come and give me hugs, and that just makes me feel amazing.
Our elementary kids love you,
Yeah, they're sweet. But it went from only talking to God when I needed something to talking to God every day, and to, starting my day out by getting into the Word somehow, even if it's just I get a daily verse to my phone, and just kind of looking at it. I try to read every day, but, I always get that verse to my phone and kind of see, how does this apply to me? What's it talking about? So it went from an intermittent conversation with God to an everyday conversation with God, and I think that makes all the difference.
He's now at the center of everything you do. Not just a Sunday deal, but you're interacting with him all the time now.
And also, it's kind of like, as you say, that every day. I started kind of like a fitness journey at the same time, because I always struggled with a lot of like self-image, and just reading a lot and getting into the Bible and reading a lot of things about that. I've learned that God made me the way I'm supposed to be, and it's almost disgraceful to hate myself because he loves me, and he made me the way he wanted me to be. So all of that kind of came together at the same time, where I have a little bit more confidence in myself because of that too.
In spite of everything you've gone through, to me you seem, not perfectly all the time, but to me you seem to be at peace.
Oh, yes.
That even in the middle of chaos, you've got a peace that anchors you through all that.
Yeah. So right before I got baptized and the pandemic was just starting, I remember just crying on my way to work. Because I was so anxious, and I knew what was coming, because work was awful at that time. We didn't have enough nurses. We have a 12-bed unit, and we were running 12 ventilators at the same time. And at the same time, I started charging on my floor, so I was in charge too. Yeah. So, after I kind of started taking these steps, and, I started listening to some of your older sermons on my podcast on my way to work, listening to more, like Christian music on the way to work. And that just kind of helped me be more at peace. But now I can honestly say, and I've always had anxiety to the point where it almost made me want to stay home all the time. But I just honestly feel at peace. I still get the nervous jitters about things sometimes, but I don't feel that, like I said earlier, like a pot of boiling water. I just, I feel like I'm at ease.
And in those moments where that anxiety starts to creep up, what do you do?
I usually just kind of talk to myself and say, like, you can do this. God's with you. You've been through worse. Yeah. You've been through worse. And also, a big thing for me was, like, even when I was anxious, I was like, I have so much going for me. I've got so much good going on. There's no reason to be, so anxious to this point, because there's people in worse, off, that have worse problems going on. So I think that was a big thing for me, especially like, I'm applying for anesthesia school. There's so much good that's going on that I just kind of take a step back and say, this is happening right now, but you're going to get through it.
Jesus said one time, you'll know the truth and the truth will set you free.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you've just given us a master class in how to grab hold of and stay focused on truth and let it redirect your life and free you from some of that.
And I think I was always kind of looking towards the future, like, oh, this is going to happen this day. This is going to happen. Well, I've just started to live in the moment. I just got to take it one day at a time.
You're not trying to control everything.
Right. Whatever happens, happens. But, I'm just trying to take it one day, 1 minute at a time.
So, last question for you. As you know, there are a lot of people who deal with anxiety.
Yeah.
It's crippling for some of them. It is a struggle and a battle.
Oh, yeah.
For people out there who are listening to your story resonating, and they're going, oh my gosh, I wish I was at the point she's at. What would you say to them?
I'd say it didn't happen overnight. It took me, I'm not joking, 20 years to get there. But, really leaning into the Word, finding a great church that I could go to where I felt welcome, and serving, where I feel like I'm just a part of something bigger than myself. I remember when I kind of started thinking about wanting to serve, I was like, but I don't know all the stories in the Bible. Well, the kids don't care that I don't know all the stories in the Bible. Right. So just, finding your place in a great place like Journey, and, giving your time to kids, or any, serving in any way. But just like talking to God every day, not making it intermittent, but just, finding some time in your day to talk to Him every day. And also just, like I said, looking for the positive things that are going on too, because there's always something good you can look at. And just realize that it's okay to be afraid, but that God's going to be there with you through it all the way. He never said that we wouldn't be afraid and that we wouldn't go through things, but that He was going to be with us every step of the way.
Well, you're a great example of what can happen, what God can do in someone's life when you fill your mind with what's true and focus on Him, and when you turn your attention from yourself, because anxiety makes you just, it makes you consumed
worried
with
about
yourself, right?
Yeah.
And when you talked about serving there, you have put that habit into your life, and it's a constant reminder now. You just focus your attention on those kids.
Yes.
It takes your mind off of yourself, and it does help heal some of this stuff. So I'm so excited about what God is doing in your life, and I know He's got an incredible future for you. Thanks for being willing to share this. Thanks for helping so many people, and we can't wait to see what God does next.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in today. Before you go, remember to hit the like button so more people on YouTube will see this message. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any of this great content. We'll see you next time right here with Journey at Home.